The Fan.
Hey, Bucks. Blondie.
It's time to drop the puck. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong
Champlin's Jamie Hersch of NHL Network. It's Paul Allen. How have you been?
Hello, I'm so good. How are you?
Doing quite well. And hey, Blondie was doing some play-by-play yesterday on TV, and she does some these days, including the Professional Women's Hockey League, and a game yesterday between Minnesota and New York and Connecticut. And that was a fun watch when I was texting you between periods, and super glad I turned it on yesterday morning to hear my buddy killing it, calling the game. Now, Minnesota won 2-1 in overtime. I mean, you sounded like you were having the time of your life.
I was, and I am. And honestly, you know, we've talked in the past about getting these play-by-play opportunities. And for the most part, it's been with NHL Network, which is great. Any opportunity is great. But those opportunities we call from off a monitor in a studio. And I'm finally getting a chance to be in an arena through the PWHL while calling the action. And it is night and day different. You know, there's just no substitute for the energy that you feel when you're in the building with the crowd and everything you can see when it's right in front of you instead of off a monitor. And so I really feel like this is the opportunity of a lifetime for me to kind of try to help elevate the women's game, but also getting some really valuable experience too.
Ain't no doubt about that, and that's the reason for the text and the call is A, to praise you and catch up with you, but B, also to talk about the PWHL, where really it's the first time I watched it for more than an hour. So with you calling games, is and I'm sorry for not knowing this, but it was that the first time that you called a game from an arena, or have you done others?
So this is my third game this season. It just started. New Year's Day was the first game. It was up in Toronto. I'm only doing the home New York games, and so this was yesterday was the third home game for New York. So first season that I'm doing it in person, third time yesterday.
Yeah, and and you know, I've never called hockey games off television, but I've done football games, and you know, I've watched a lot of hockey. Just thinking about what you do from say Secaucus, calling a game that may be in St. Louis compared to being there, and you
right.
At least I could feel that by the game was in Bridgeport, Connecticut, between Minnesota and New York, and with you and the analyst, I could just feel the excitement and the description that was made available to you by being at the actual event, and I'm really glad to hear you say that it makes a big difference, because I could hear it in your call, Jamie, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, thanks. And the challenge now is trying to bring that organic energy and excitement into the game calls that I do in studio, because the reality is, in the world in which we live right now, every company is budget conscious, this and that. And so I want to be able to still have that excitement even when I'm in a more sterile environment like a studio or a little booth. But that's the challenge. And I know a lot of people, like you just said yourself with football, in this kind of post-COVID world, had to learn how to call games without being there. But it certainly makes a difference, and I hope that I get more opportunities, whether NHL Network, PWHL, or otherwise, coming up.
And with the Professional Women's Hockey League, Minnesota beats New York 2-1 in overtime. First question here with this. Why was that game in Bridgeport, Connecticut? Why doesn't the New York team play in New York?
That's a great question. And I think the best answer I have for you is everything came together in such a whirlwind. This league was announced in late June. So you're talking about starting an entire league in 6 months' time, which is what they did. And a lot of people said they couldn't do it. So they did it, but there are things that I think they're figuring out as they go. And one of those is the location. You're seeing it in Boston, where they're playing in Lowell, which is a pretty good hike outside of Boston. Bridgeport is a great option building-wise, because it seats about 8,000 for a hockey game. It's where the Islanders AHL team plays. but it is about a 90-minute commute from New York City. And so you're going to lose a lot of those New York fans who just aren't really willing to travel that distance to go to a game. They do play about half their games on Long Island, where the Islanders play at UBS Arena. And the flip side of that is, if you're only selling 2,000 to 4,000 tickets in a 17,000 seat arena, then it can feel a little bit emptier. So I think they're just trying to figure out what is going to make sense long term. Right now, there's still 3 or 4 games on the New York home schedule that are TBD for location. So I think they're experimenting, whether it be, a college rink or otherwise. They're trying to figure out what's best, because we can't all be Minnesota, right? We can't all be XL Energy Center where you're selling 13,000 seats to a game, which is fantastic.
Now, Abby Boreen scored the game winner, and she attended Hill Murray and the University of Minnesota. And as we go here in the cornfields, I mean, quite a bit of, not surprisingly, but quite a bit of local flair with these PWHL teams, right? I mean, Minnesotans all over the place.
All over. And that, I think, was intentional, too, especially in starting a new league that you want to get people to rally behind quickly. I think that was kind of a focus. And I know certainly on the Toronto roster, I think something like 80% of their roster are certainly Canadian, if not Ontario native specifically. And so same thing with Minnesota. I think they have 11 players right now who are Minnesota natives, and a lot of them who aren't still have Minnesota connections via the NCAA game. So I think that was intentional, but it's certainly, it adds to it, especially I'm sure for those women to play at home and have so many friends and family being able to watch them play professional women's hockey, really for the first time for many of them.
Jamie Hersch,
Fox,
NHL Network, and Champlin native, Minnesota native, on the 9 to noon show after her good work yesterday calling the Professional Women's Hockey League in Minnesota and New York. It was on Bally Sports North. That's where I caught it in late morning. The Minnesota roster, Jamie, is fascinating. I mean, not only many a familiar name, but in deep diving it for the first time, the youngest player at age 23 is Brooke Bryant, who played for the Mankato Mavs, and the oldest is Susanna Tapani, who is a 6-time Finnish national champion and a decade ago played for North Dakota. I mean, it's so much fun learning about these ladies. Well, was it fun for you preparing for the call?
It's so fun. And I will say it's a lot more prep work than for an NHL game because, 5 nights a week I'm on NHL Network talking about all these NHL players, so I don't have to do as much research. But it's been really fun to learn these women's stories and, specifically, again, going back to the Minnesota connections. But there's a lot of really talented women who are from Czechia that are playing. In fact, one of the top players on Team Minnesota is from Czechia, too. Krishova is, I think, how we're pronouncing it. That's the other side of this is the pronunciations of these women that aren't as well known, because I think everyone's heard of Kendall Coyne-Schofield or Hillary Knight, Marie-Philippe Poulin on the Canadian side, just from watching the Olympics over the years. But that's what's so special about this league is I think for the first time, they're getting the proper TV coverage and exposure. All the games are available to stream for free live on YouTube as they happen. And so that kind of exposure is just so important to growing the game because you're right. Most people haven't heard. Look, I've been covering hockey for, 12 years or something, and I've never heard of 90% of these women before. And so it's great to see all of these media outlets and the access and the availability of these games, whether it be on Bally Sports North in Minnesota, it's on MSG here in the New York area, and again on YouTube. I think it's a really fundamental piece of growing the game as a whole.
Yeah, like looking at the roster, Maddie Rooney. I mean, goaltending immortality at Duluth and on many levels. And then Kelly Panic is one of the greatest women's hockey players in the history of the state. And this is the state of hockey. And, she's been Ilse Margaret's, Brad Frost Gophers, then the Olympics. And Kelly Panic, I mean, she's super gifted, isn't she?
She's one of the best defenders in the game and had another 2 assists yesterday, had 2 assists on Saturday in Boston. There's a reason why, and for people who are listening that don't know a ton about the PWHL, when they started, each team had the opportunity to sign 3 free agents. So those are the top players, right? And Lee Steckline, Kendall Coyne-Schofield, and Kelly Panic, to your point, were the three players that Minnesota decided to go out and sign before the draft. And I think, for good reason. Kelly Panic, I've actually worked with her a little bit on the broadcast side. She did some stuff for us last year at Hockey to Minnesota. But she's still so talented on the ice as well. And it's just such a treat to be able to see these women play, 2-3 times a week sometimes versus once every 4 years in the Olympics. It just didn't seem fair ever to me to have such talent basically reserved for world championships and Olympic Games. And now there's finally a sustainable league that we hope is, forever. We hope this is the first year that we look back on someday and we can liken it to the success of the WNBA. That's really the dream for the PWHL, is to grow the game, expand to bigger cities, and make it something that women can actually play hockey for a living.
Last one for old school, best school, Jamie Hersch, at Jamie Hersch via Twitter, or as the kids call it, X, and NHL Network, and play-by-play with the PWHL and much more. And this league, the Professional Women's Hockey League, last one, it has a physical side to it, doesn't it? I mean, those ladies were getting after it in the tough, dirty parts of the rink, like the corners and stuff,
Yeah. They're trying to kind of limit and eliminate open ice hits. So it's not going to be quite what NHL fans are used to seeing in terms of those kind of big explosive hits. And as long as you're playing the puck and as long as you're kind of, engaged in a check along the boards and it's not dirty, this is by far the most physical hockey that the women's game has ever seen. And that's intentional. The players fought for that. The leaders of the league are down with that. The officials are certainly on board with that. So I think it's great because, while you always want people to be safe, let's be real. Any hockey fan knows that checking is a big part of the game. And if you eliminate it entirely, it changes it. So I think it is really exciting hockey. It's fast paced, incredible skill. And we saw yesterday, and most games actually have come down to just a 1-goal difference. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't checked it out to this point, whether it's buying tickets to go see them in person at Excel or watching on Valley Sports North or even YouTube. I mean, just check it out because it's a product that's worth seeing.
Great job, buddy. Let's stay in touch, okay?
Thank you so much, PA. Take care.
Yep, see you. Jamie Hersch, NHL Network. Around the corner from Fox is another Covenant catch-up, this one with Jenny Taft. Used to work for Fox Sports North, and she was the host of Hockey Day Minnesota, and there are many things about which we can chat with Miss Taft, an Edina native, but first we have this.
The Fan, along with the Big Ten basketball tournament, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword check. The keyword is check.
On KFAN, The Fan.
Everybody ready now? 3, 2. All right, 3-2. All right, the Wild lost over the weekend. All right, final score was 3-2. Jenny Taft, Paul Allen, what's going on?
Hi, how are you? It's great to catch up.
Likewise, great to watch you this weekend. I have all your albums. This is Jenny Taft, Edina native, sideline analyst for the biggest college football games we watch on Fox. And Saturday, she was in War Road hosting Hockey Day Minnesota. And a great job as usual Saturday. You look like you were having just an awesome time.
I was. And I mean, I know you know this about me, PA, but I love being back. And Hockey Day is so special to me just because Valley Sports North, obviously formerly Fox Sports North, gave me my first opportunity to be on air. And my first real broadcast was, I think, 2011, where they gave me a lot more chances to be a part of Hockey Day. And so it's sentimental. I also love the people that are still there, the producers, directors, behind the scenes. It's just nice to be back and be around this game that we love. And I loved War Road. I kind of fell in love with it. I had never been up there, and what an amazing hockey town, USA.
Right, and I know your husband played hockey in the NHL for like a decade, right?
Yeah, so Matt played. He's retired now. He's actually coaching at USA Hockey in Plymouth, Michigan. So we are in the Detroit area now. So we're kind of back in the hockey scene.
Oh, I'm starting to get it now. And then, okay. And your father, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, he played a handful of games with the Detroit Red Wings, right?
Yeah, he did. And he played at Southwest back in the day.
Right.
And it was really cool. I was chatting with a few NHL greats during Hockey Day, Dave Christian and Neil Broughton and Lou Nanne, and they were telling me stories about my dad, and that to me was the coolest thing, hearing Dave Christian say, "Oh, your dad, he was so good on the power play for that Wisconsin team." So it was just nostalgic. And
That's
I
awesome.
I played hockey in high school, but there's something, it's hard to describe what hockey means to people in Minnesota unless you're really living it and a part of it. And I don't cover hockey a lot now, but whenever I get an opportunity, I can't say no. It's just too important to me, and I love the game. I think it's so unique, especially like the high school girls in War Road. I did rinkside reporting for them, and I'm like, if I would have had the opportunity to play outside on Valley Sports North as a high school hockey player, like, how cool. So I was just happy to be back.
And I can, and this feels like it's Saturday and you're chatting with Dave Christian or Lou Nanne or doing, because the pop in your voice of authenticity and excitement and just, you, whether it's at the college level or whatever, you've done so much now, is sometimes we see so much, but we forget the forest for the trees. And for you to be like, I fell in love with War Road. I mean, with all due respect, not many are going to say I fell in love with War Road. And then, like, for me, I follow hockey. I watch it. I get it for the most part. You played it. I had no idea that this was like War Road Roseau pairing 118 or 119, which makes it the greatest rivalry in the history of Minnesota high school hockey. And man, you and everybody else just captured that so beautifully.
Oh, well, thanks. I feel like, one, when they asked me to come back, I first checked with Fox Sports, and they were like, what I love about Fox, they're always like, of course, if you're available and we don't have anything, I mean, this is kind of an off. I'm more available now. I do a little college basketball, and, this is slower with college football having wrapped, and they were like, absolutely, go home, be a part of this. And I was worried about the temperature. I'm not going to lie to you. I've gotten a little soft having left Minnesota, and I was worried about how cold it was going to be, and it was beautiful. I'm talking 30 degrees, sun was shining. I mean, it was almost like too good to be true in War Road, and standing room only for the high school boys game. And I agree with you. I didn't realize the intensity of that rivalry. It makes sense now. But the coolest thing about War Road is the fact that it's free ice time all the time for the community. Like, can you imagine growing up and not paying for ice time? I think that's what makes Minnesota so special. Like, the ability to skate whenever, wherever, but free ice time. Like, I would have been so much better
and
if I could have played forever.
And Jenny, those stands were jam-packed. I mean, they were jam-packed for every single game. People around the glass, and I'm not talking just like stragglers. I mean, like rows of people. And it's safe to say the community with Hockey Day Minnesota absolutely embraces the event, and we're just loving it, right?
Yeah, and that's what, 18 years straight, right? Hockey Day's been going on, and 18 hours of coverage, like, I have to give Valley Sports a lot of credit for just putting on such an incredible event. That's hard to do when you're not taking breaks and you're back-to-back all these games, and, ending with the Minnesota Wild at night. They didn't pull out the win, but it's always fun to have that to look forward to. I would say that the community, and it's not just War Road. I mean, War Road's, I think, population 1,800. I think they sold over 10,000 tickets. So people came in from all over, and it was busy all day. And I met all these all these locals who are just so proud to host this event. And I felt like they were like, come back anytime. I got all these new friends, all these numbers. If you want to go fishing in the summer, come back to join us. So who knows? Maybe Warrow's in my future as a family trip someday.
Okay, so, Jenny Taft, Edina native, Fox Sports, sideline analyst for college football is the A topic with her. And like I said earlier, all the big games you see on Fox, she's on the sideline. She's elite. So when did you get home last night or this morning from Santa Clara? That's after I started texting you over the weekend. I was wondering, how's she going to hit this 10-17, which actually is a 10-20, if she undoubtedly is in Santa Clara following, I guess, her new favorite team, the Detroit Lions?
Oh, gosh. I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming from you, and I got a lot of flack for posting. So I post a video on social media. I go to the Lions game with a friend. I'm now living in the Detroit suburbs. So I have not been to a game as a fan in a very long time. And I apologize that it wasn't the Vikings. And obviously, if the Lions were playing the Vikings, I would be rooting for my Minnesota Vikings. But it was so refreshing to sit in the stands and have I didn't care who won. I was just happy to be around players that I've covered. And I love stories. I think I'm like you. Like, the reason I love this job, I love storytelling. I love Aiden Hutchinson. I loved covering Amon-Ra St. Brown at USC. Like, I can still tell you about their families and stories that I told from college. And even like Baker Mayfield, which was on the other side of things when that was the game I was at in Detroit. Like, I knew and still do keep in touch with a lot of these players. So that to me was fun. And I was just enjoying Ford Field and the energy. I know people were not happy with me. You're probably mad at me.
Well, no,
but it was fun.
No, it shocked me, and you know what? I don't know. I think talking about the Lions, pretty much all the time, but Vikings aren't in the postseason, so now we're talking about the Lions and their lot in life getting to the Super Bowl. I really didn't have a problem if they won yesterday and got to the Super Bowl. I like them. I've always kind of liked the Lions. It's not a divisional piece of vitriol that I or others have for other teams. But so I understand where you're coming from with this, and certainly I'm not mad a lick. But did you have to wear the loud Lion shirt and paint?
Yeah, that was a lot.
Well, paint your face in Honolulu blue with some like Barry Sanders headband. I mean, what the hell?
There was no paint.
Oh,
there was no paint. I did buy a shirt, which I agree might have been going too far.
But it was loud.
Was fun. It was a little loud. It was a little loud. I'll give it to a friend. How about that? I'll give it to a friend. But, being in Michigan now, like, we've had a pretty, like, my neighbors also, which is so fun. You go down the block when you're living in the suburbs of Detroit, and it's either Michigan or Michigan State, and it's this heated rivalry. So once my neighbors found out that I'm on the Michigan sideline a lot, fortunately Michigan State obviously didn't have a great year. I wasn't covering them, but I had so many late nights where I'm walking my dog and my neighbor, I'm talking 11 o'clock. He's like, hey, what's the latest with Coach Harbaugh? And I'm like, I don't want to chat about this right now, but you kind of love it. And love Coach Sharon Moore. I'm really happy he got that opportunity with Michigan. I think he deserves it.
Right.
And it was fun to see that from the community side, just see it as a fan. And just like I said, I like stories. I like telling stories about these athletes, and I rooted for a lot of those players because they're good players. Great personalities, and it's the same. It's the same thing with the Lions. I think Dan Campbell's a great coach. I love his personality, but again, if the Vikings are playing the Lions,
right,
my allegiance. So we will reset. It's over now. The Lions love is done for me.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Edina native Jenny Taft, at Jenny Taft via Twitter, at Jenny Taft, if you'd like to see what we're talking about, and follow her on Twitter. I mean, she does a terrific job on many, many levels. And you know what? So that's your 1A. Okay, like the Cleveland Browns are my 1A because their coach, Kevin Stefanski, is one of the very best friends I've ever had in football.
There you go.
So I'm pulling for Kevin Calm, Stefanski, and the Browns all the time. So that's kind of like my 1A. So I understand what you're saying there. Now, but for your kiddies, for these Lions, I mean, I know you watched the game. So tough loss there, Jenny Taft.
Oh, it was tough. And I know Coach Campbell's going to be criticized about some of those decisions on fourth down. And it's just crazy how different the game was in the second half. And you got to give the 49ers credit for pulling that off. They have so much skill. Brock Purdy's a great story. That's another guy that I was covering in college. So I think that's fun for me. Like, if I get the chance to cover the NFL one day, and I hope I do, and I love college, but if Fox called me tomorrow and said, hey, we want you on the NFL sidelines, like, I love the fact that I've seen so many of these guys develop over the years, and, you know, you root for them, and I think he's a great story, and I don't know. I mean, what do you think? What's your early take on the Super Bowl? Right now, I feel like I heard you guys talking a little bit about that Super Bowl. Like, is it a little fatigue with KC, with the 49ers? Like, it'd be nice to see the 49ers maybe pull it off.
The matchup is going to be elite, okay? The matchup and the schematic wherewithal of Andy Reid against Kyle Shanahan. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's phenomenal. So, yeah, when we get there, I'm sure we are going to love it. But, I mean, from a story standpoint, I mean, there was a massive story, 2 stories left on the metaphorical cutting room floor. Can Lamar Jackson pass his way to a Super Bowl win? And how about the lovable Lions, never having been close to this, and then now they might win the Super Bowl. But Chiefs-Niners probably is the best pairing, and I don't really have an opinion who's going to win, but Kansas City's been an underdog in now 3 consecutive playoff games. So you go ahead and make Patrick Mahomes an underdog, and he's going to make you pay, right?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's like Patrick Mahomes again. Like, I remember him in college and how impressive he was, waiting his turn, and it's hard to even describe his talent. I feel like he's in a league of his own, and you're right about the underdog angle. And you know, you can't really bet against the Chiefs right now. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to hopefully be in Vegas, experiencing some of this. And will you be there? We need to catch up, proper catch up, if that's the case. Yeah,
I'd love that. The proper catch up. A, yes. B, no. No, I have no desire to go to a Super Bowl unless I'm calling the game for a team. So I've never been to a Super Bowl. So you got something up your sleeve here. You might be doing a little workout 702 way, right?
Oh, well, I'm going to do hopefully a little, I work as well sometimes for like an entertainment show extra. So sometimes they have me come out and do some red carpet events for Super Bowl, like pre-week parties, because I know the athletes, and I'm always on board to be a part of that if I get asked. So I think I'm going to go out and be able to do that. And then just, see some colleagues, but I don't even think I'll stay for the game. I'm just going to go for a couple days before, and I mean, hey, it's Vegas. Can't be the worst place to go for a couple days.
To close with your A job, college football, Deion and the Buffaloes. I mean, things fell apart quite swiftly for them last season, and the world was taking myriad pot shots when things started to get bad for Deion, who was super loud early in the season, so maybe he had it coming. Do you think they'll be better next year, especially with Pat Shurmur as offensive coordinator?
Yeah, great question. And it was unique having been a part of that beginning, right? So I was there for the crazy win against TCU, and then I had them at home, and I had them when it was still looking pretty good. Let me first say, Coach Prime was the most interesting and impactful person I've ever sat down with as a head coach. He blew me away in meetings. I didn't know what to expect. He was the kind of coach where I'm like, all right, I'd run through a wall for you. I was very impressed by him. I'd never met him before, and I understood why players want to play for him. And that's just the first thing I want to say. I think that there's so much potential there, and I do believe that they're going to bring in good guys, and they needed to get bigger on the line, and they will. And I do think that they maybe needed to make some changes with some of the coaching. So the hype around Boulder was incredible to see, just what he's brought to that college and community and the relevance. And I was blown away by him. I mean, I know it's a lot, and I know he's outspoken, but, as you know, like, he's dealing with some health stuff, his foot, and a couple of his toes are amputated. He's in pain all the time. And he said something to me. He said, the devil will take my mobility, but he'll never take my ability. And those words have stuck with me, of just like the coaching and wanting to give back. And I was blown away by him, truly. So I think there's just a great story there. And I do believe that they will be better. And I guess we'll wait and see. But that's what's so fun about college football, because every single year we have these, predictions, but you never know who steps up, and the portal makes everything unique. And ever changing. So yeah, I'm all in on Prime and seeing what he can do in the future.
Hey, super great catching up with you over the weekend. Thanks for making time today, because I know you're busy with family stuff, given you're back in Minnesota and you're an Edina native. Safe travels during the winter, and God bless you, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm actually going to see my great-grandma, so we're getting all the family time in. So thank you, PA. It's great to catch up.
Yeah, Jenny, you're the best. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Jenny Taft, at Jenny Taft via X or Twitter. Jenny Taft of Fox. When 9 to noon continues, around the corner, News du Nord, and much more after that when we proceed into the final hour.
FAN, the Fan.
Brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Poker, blackjack, table games all year round. Bingo on Tuesdays, live racing in the spring, having sips at Chips, and tipping Derek Allen. All of that, Canterbury and Shakopee, CanterburyPark.com. Some conversation out of the conference title games from yesterday. Did a fair amount of it in the opening segment, but I want to play this audio for you here, PA. Dan Campbell talking about those fourth downs.
I just felt really good about us converting and getting our momentum and not letting them play long ball. You know, they were bleeding the clock out. That's what they do. And I wanted to get the upper hand back. It's easy hindsight, and I get it, you know. I get that. But I don't regret those decisions, and that's hard. You know, it's hard because, you know, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out, but I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man. You know, we just didn't work out.
So that's Dan Campbell, and I would like your, quick twitch on this as you're watching the game. I'll go through a few instances here. So they don't go for the touchdown at the end of the first half. That's where they do opt for the field goal inside the 5.
I was in on that one.
So that's 24-7. First possession of the second half, it's 4th and 2 at the Niners 28. They go for it, do not get it, turn it over on downs.
I was in on that decision.
Then you get the Gibbs L, that fumble to start the possession. Then they go 3 and out. And I think it was 17 or so points the Niners score in the third quarter. So it feels like the whole thing's on tilt.
Yep.
And but then I believe that is the particular fourth down he's talking about. It's 27-24.
Yeah.
4th and 3 at the Niners 30. That means Badgley's kicking from 48 to tie it.
Yep.
And they go for it. Do not get it after a nice pass rush pushed Goff out of his comfort zone and had to make a tough throw.
With the last one, I would have given it a try. I would have tried a field goal. Now, it's assumedly those who are getting, unbelievably audibly loud about some of these decisions, at least stuff that I've seen on social media and some texts that I got from some Lions fans. It comes under the assumption that you do know Michael Badgley
is a problem.
Well, he's flat poor from 50 and beyond.
Correct. Yeah, he's less than half in his career.
Yeah, but it's that, when they signed him, his first game with the Lions this year was against the Vikings. They had just cut Riley Patterson. Now, Riley has a stronger leg than Badgley, and the problem, I just didn't understand it when they were talking about their route to Badgley and keep Badgley and keep battling and keep Badgley. Is they were frustrated with Riley Patterson's accuracy and or leg strength from deep. So then I deep dive Badgley and I'm like, well, what the hell is this? My man has struggled for years from 50 and beyond, indoors and or out. So the jettisoning of the field goal before halftime, I felt was discretion being the better part of valor. The second one you mentioned, I could have gone either way, but I was cool because of the field position and where they were in the second half, still time to overcome some things if it doesn't work. I would have tried the last one, and I know those numbers and I just laid that whole thing out.
Yeah.
But he's a compensated member of your team. So therefore, inherently, if you believe enough in him to cut somebody and to bring somebody in, and then you're in that situation with a chance to tie it, and the field, it's very late in the game. The field position wasn't great if you missed it. then yeah, I probably would have done that one. I would have kicked that field goal or tried it.
And I'm pretty sure he has 2 50-yard field goals, I think, in this playoffs. So, his career-wise has been a problem. But recency, and this would have been from 48 if we're going to be, talking semantics on the yardage. 48 outdoors, close enough to 50.
Outdoors, thick grass. Yeah.
Maybe you play that game.
Yeah,
but he went for the gamble. He went for the momentum. The only other thing from that game that I will ask you.
Yeah, because there's absolutely something, if we want to go down this road, of things that shaped a loss, that were not super obvious. What do you have to say?
Well, the Reynolds drops, the Gibbs fumble. I mean, absolutely.
Josh Reynolds choked. And Josh Reynolds, I like Josh Reynolds, man. I mean, I've never met him, but I've heard so much about him from Kevin O'Connell, who had him with the Rams. Josh, all of his career, has been a big spot, third down, touchdown. Hey, he only caught 3 passes, but 2 were the biggest in the game. I mean, he had 2 bad drops. He had one of the worst drops, that final one on the shallow cross when they went 3 and out, where he was scared. I don't know if he was scared of getting hit, if the moment was too big or what, but he choked it up. And that, for me, now, Jahmyr Gibbs went the wrong way on the handoff. I mean, I'm going to roll the dice that Goff had the right hand for the handoff, and Gibbs went to the wrong side. And so, therefore, the play is jacked up from the outset. Gibbs had ample time to hold that ball, and he didn't. That's fine. He's the bomb, and he'll be better for it. But Reynolds, a veteran, dropping those passes, that was so... That played into that loss so largely that needs to be analyzed, or not analyzed, but part of the equation too, don't you think? I mean, you're the one that brought it up.
I do think, absolutely. Last thing for you, late stages, they're scoring the touchdown to then get to the onside kick. Mm-hmm. What do you think about them taking the risk, and they fail, with running Montgomery there, which forces them, because they don't get it, to take their first time out, which then forces them to kick the onside kick, where they're kneeling it out with a second left instead of having all 3, which would have allowed, if they stop them, to get a punt in about 30 seconds left to go try and get a field goal.
Yeah, I was... it's easier to get 3 than 6, so I was cool with them scoring the touchdown because they felt good with what they had to get the touchdown.
Well, no, they need to score the touchdown, PA, but they miss on the run, which keeps the clock going.
Yeah.
So they don't waste it. They had to take a timeout there versus saving all 3 via getting the touchdown through the air, not burning that clock.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch the situation to properly analyze it.
To the other side of things, the Kansas City Chiefs headed to their 4th Super Bowl in the last 5 years. Here's John Harbaugh on Lamar Jackson.
I told him to stand up tall. He's had a great season. His performance today was all heart. He fought. He went out there and gave it everything he had, so I don't think that's anything that I'd be disappointed in.
So that's him on Lamar, and then him on the team's accomplishments.
There's so many stories on this team, so many individual stories. The message is to eyes straight ahead, your chin up, your chest out, and understand what you did accomplish.
So
Spags dominated that game. Steve Spagnuolo has as much to do with that victory as Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, or anybody else. The ever-changing nature of how he stayed ahead of something called Monken. I mean, first and foremost, the Ravens are at home, and they scored 1 touchdown. And so okay, they got close on 1, but they didn't get in because your guy Zay Flowers fumbled. So to be the coordinator of a defense in the championship conference game, that whole down, that's phenomenal. But I kind of felt early in the game he was doing a job on them when on the first 3rd down of the game, Nelson Aguilar is probably the 3rd or 4th preferred receiver for the Ravens. Spagnuolo had his corners set in a way where it looked like Justin Reed was going to check the slot. But then he backed off and McDuffie moved over their best corner and handled not the best receiver for the Ravens. So, I'm watching this going what are we doing here? Well, there's Aguilar on a cross with McDuffie right on him because Spagnuolo knew what play was coming, knew what the formation looked like, and knew how to get his best player on the one they were going to go to on that third down. And he knocked it away. So I was like, from there, I was just kind of like watching how he did things during the course of the game. The Monken cat was caught off guard almost every step of the way. I mean, Spags blitzes 13 times in a row. Then he rushes 3-4 times in a row. Then he blitzes from I mean, he just mixed it up.
Yeah.
So beautifully yesterday. It kept Jackson, Monken, and the Ravens off balance. So Steve Spagnuolo, man, he pitched a really good one yesterday.
He deserves a ton of credit, but in some ways, you also still have to look. In the end, Zay Flowers is going into the end zone and fumbles. Mm-hmm. And that pass into triple coverage for Isaiah Likely,
yeah,
I don't know. They coached that out of high school kids at some point. Yeah. That was just a brutal decision and an awful moment for Lamar. Yep. So it's...
Agreed.
You're simultaneously, it's like Spags did fantastic work, and somehow Monken just decided he wasn't going to run the ball and do the thing that made them the way they were. But unbelievably awful decisions by who will ultimately be the 2023 MVP in Lamar Jackson.
Agreed.
A couple things left here quickly before we get to Wobble. The Wild lose to the Ducks. On Saturday night, it's a 3-2 loss. Troy Terry with a couple of goals. This is the second game in a row, by the way.
Who the hell's Troy Terry?
He plays for the Bucks. Yep. I saw it.
For the Ducks?
For the Ducks. Yeah. I saw it in an article.
I watched a little of it. I watched it actually turn to 3-2. And I'm like, damn, man, I can't believe we're going to close Hockey Day Minnesota losing to the Anaheimers.
Well, this is 2 games in a row now where the team has had leads going into the third period. It was the Predators who put 3 on them in the third period. Roman Josi capping that thing off, and then Boldy makes it close, albeit a 3-2 L. And then on Saturday night, you're leading 2-1, and you give up 2 goals into the third, and you lose 3-2. So you're missing out on points by losing to teams you should be beating at home. And we are your home for Wild hockey. So as they jump back into it, they got a game tomorrow night, 3-game week for them, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We'll cover everything that comes your way Wild hockey-wise. Now, we're also your home for the Howl, PA.
Yeah.
This is the second time in a week, referring to Saturday, second time in a week that the Minnesota Timberwolves have lost to a team with fewer than 10 wins. The Charlotte Hornets and then the San Antonio Spurs. Second half and specifically fourth quarter leads, double-digit fourth quarter leads.
Yep.
They are conceding them. They are limping to the finish line, and they are losing games. And no big deal. They just have OKC on the menu tonight.
Is that one on KFAN? I would assume it is. I mean, if we have Wolves in Orlando on the Fan, you better have Wolves OKC on the Big Bird.
It's going to be on the Fan, I believe, bumper to bumper, like he's in the cage today.
Sweet, that looks fun.
It will be fun.
As
absolutely.
we put together these boxes and the boxes for with the Wolves, you know, the practice facility where we're probably going to do them is cool. That cage looks pretty cool.
Cage is awesome.
I mean, Messrs. Finch, Connolly, and whomever. Nori. I walk upstairs to the cage to be next to the Skyway. The cage bit was cool, man.
Do we have to ask Barrero for permission?
Thank you. Copyright Dan Barrero.
And when it comes to the Timberwolves and the game tonight against OKC, probably 35, 40 minutes from now, we're going to dive into some things, including with respect. Stop saying the Timberwolves have one of the best defenses in the NBA. Okay, take your analytics that lead to that and shove them where. Because you don't lead by 13 at the end of one, 12 at halftime, 10 into the fourth quarter, and then find a way to lose a game like that. So their analytics and points per game and stuff like that, yeah, their defense is better, but it's not one of the best in the NBA. I mean, it visually speaking, I've just seen enough now. We'll talk about that and much more, maybe even with Wobble, the columnist, Lavelli Neal III, columnist for the Star Tribune. He stops by the studio around the corner. It's 9 to noon.